Hi, I'm State Representative Bob Godfrey, and in just a minute I'm going to be talking with House Speaker Jim Amann and House Majority Leader Chris Donovan about the budget, about the environment, about gasoline prices, the things that concern you on Capitol Viewpoint. Stay tuned. From the studios of the University of Hartford, welcome to Capitol Viewpoint. I'm State Representative Bob Godfrey, and this is the inaugural show in a series that we're going to be doing from Hartford and talking about what the House Democratic Caucus has been doing for you and for the state of Connecticut. I have two very special guests here with me today in this first program. A Speaker of the House, Jim Amann, who hails from Milford, and the Majority Leader from Meriden, Chris Donovan. And welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here. In the 20th century, the Democratic Party kind of created the modern middle class, no longer just kind of merchants, but people who actually worked for a living and were able to realize what has now become to be the American dream. But sadly, in the 21st century, we seem to be under attack. That dream seems to be under attack, especially by the Republican National Party, and we've had to do quite a lot in Connecticut to be the shield and the defense for our constituents. And this year, in our regular session that ended relatively recently, we had to do quite a bit to enable to do that. And I think, obviously, Jim, that the most important issues that we take under our wing every year deals with spending and taxing, being able to put together a state government that works, that provides the services and the needs of our constituents. And this was a funny year, though, when it came to the budget. And I'm hoping you can kind of fill us in on some of the things that went on, but certainly the successes that in this last 2 years we've been able to do for our constituents.
I think I can sum that up pretty good, Bob. You know, at the beginning of the year, everybody was predicting a $265 million surplus, but we knew that later on that the economy might get a little rocky, certainly following the federal, what was happening federally and also globally in the economy. And so we decided, in fact, the House Democrats were probably the only ones that kind of said, you know, before we start putting out all these spending items that we all care about, let's make sure we take a very good look at it and be prepared just in case there's a downturn in the economy. So we actually predicted correctly. We went from $265 million surplus within a few months. Actually, the last 2 weeks of session, we lost about somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 to $100 million in deficit. But what people have to remember is that we were very prepared for this. In the last couple of years, our biannual budget. Last year, the budget we did was called historic, $800 and some odd million of new initiatives and programs, but more investments, especially in education, which they called historic. And it was a historic amount of money that we invested in our kids to prepare them for a global economy, not only from K through 8, but high school, but especially in our higher ed. But we also did a wonderful job in the last couple of years of taking care of health care, especially with healthy kids. There's been 11,000 new kids that are now up on the Husky program. We believe that prevention is very important to make sure that these kids have some sort of access to health care. The Majority Leader, I'm sure, will be talking about his wonderful bill that he did on pooling and what the concept was, and unfortunately what the governor did to really deny access to a lot of people in the state of Connecticut. So in reality, Bob, you are right. We've lost more and more revenue every single year, and you know in the 18 years that I've been there, you've been there a little bit longer. Chris, I think probably close to 16, I believe. And we've seen that erosion from the federal government year by year. And we could have taken the same path and said, you know, maybe it is time to talk about tightening belts and cutting back and cutting on services. On the contrary, we became very effective on the way we spent dollars, very efficient on the way we spend our dollars, and making sure that the issues of healthcare, education, transportation, which has been tremendous, and keeping our economy strong were things that we cared about. And I think we've done an extremely good job. I'm very proud of working with my partnership here with the Majority Leader, and certainly you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I think it's been a very good 2 years. And again, last thing, just to wrap it up, we are prepared for a downturn of the economy. We have a very robust rainy day fund. So if you look at other states, especially surrounding states, we're in pretty good shape as far as being prepared for more of a downturn.
And we didn't raise any taxes.
And that was the most, yeah, thank you, Bob. And that was the most incredible part is we did all that efficiency and effectiveness and did not raise taxes. Not only this year, but also last year we were very successful. We could have cut taxes last year, and maybe we'll get into that debate too, but at least we did, knowing that the middle class is hurting back home. The last thing we want to do is put more burden on them in this economy.
It's obviously been very tough as we all go back home and talk to our constituents about the things that they're having to put up with in their households. These are really what I like to call kitchen table issues. It's the things that people talk about over dinner, the part of the challenges of each day, trying to make ends meet. Happily, we're in better shape here in Connecticut, certainly because of, I think, the prudence that we have used in putting together our own budget. We did have a budget proposal. Unfortunately, the governor didn't buy into it, and the Republicans put out one, and she didn't buy into that one either. But happily, and just so everybody understands, we don't do annual budgets in Connecticut. We do two-year budgets, biennial budgets. So this current fiscal year that begins on July 1st, the budget was actually adopted a year ago. So we're okay. It's not that we have any problems with continuing to pay our bills in the state of Connecticut. Chris, Jim mentioned your huge initiative this year. One of those things that people do talk about around the kitchen table is the cost of health care and the cost of health insurance and the ability to access both of those things. And you had a great plan. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it's a basic thing. Whenever I went around, starting in November, visited various cities and towns and businesses and just groups of people and asked them about what they want in healthcare. And basically it came down to two things. One is everybody wants a pretty good plan for themselves and the family. You know, they don't want plans that they can't afford or it's high deductibles, they can't get the care they need, but they also want to make sure it's cost effective. It doesn't cost a lot because they're paying a lot for healthcare. So it seemed to be the case that people don't believe that they could have good healthcare that costs less. And we actually came up with a plan that people could get good health care that actually costs less than what they're paying now. And it was something that was right in front of us, which was our own health care plan. As state reps, as the governor, controller, attorney general, we all benefit from being in a large pool with the state employees where they bargain. They put out bids for health care to the various insurance agencies. And because of their hard work, we have a good health care plan, and it actually costs less than what cities and towns are paying and what small businesses are paying, and nonprofits as well. So we said, hey, if we have this good plan and we got it because of all this tough, negotiations with the insurance companies, let's offer it to the others and open it up our pool. So that was basically it. The proposal was a simple one. If people, voluntary plan, if a city or town wants to come into our plan, they would come into our plan, they would get good benefits for their workers, and they would save money. If they chose not to, they wouldn't have to. So, likewise with small businesses and nonprofits. And we found, as we went to the cities and towns, like my town, for instance, Meriden, we found by shifting to this plan, which was as good as the plan they had for the workers there, the city would save $2 million. And I tell a story. I was telling this to a guy who works at a local garage. He was complaining about taxes. I said, yeah, hey, this could save the city money, $2 million. He goes, that's great. And then he says, you know what? I pay $24,000 for my health care plan.
Outrageous.
And it's not that great a plan. So he's paying $24,000 a year for his health care plan. We could get him into a state health care plan close to half of that cost and be a good plan. So that's why we're making that offer. We made it off. It passed. It fell along party lines. Democrats voted for it. Some Republicans voted for it in committee, but when it came time for the vote, they chickened out and they voted against it. So it was Democrats in the Senate, Democrats in the House voted for it. We passed the bill. We put it on the governor's desk. And unfortunately, last week, she listened to some of the insurance companies who were, would have to lower the prices. They didn't like that. And so she vetoed the bill.
Sad.
Missed opportunity.
I know. But we can come back and fight
We'll be
again.
back. We'll be back to fight again.
It's always the facts. Let's take a break.
When I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I also learned about its serious connection with cardiovascular disease. I knew I needed to make some major lifestyle changes that would help me manage my type 2 diabetes. These tips help me stay in the know. Keep active, normalize critical health numbers, opt for a healthy lifestyle, and work with a healthcare provider.
I'm Dr. Dan Jones, President of the American Heart Association. Please see your own healthcare provider, and for more information, visit iknowdiabetes.org.
And we're back at Capitol Viewpoint. I'm Bob Godfrey, and we're talking here with Speaker Jim Amann and House Majority Leader Chris Donovan. Now, when I go home and talk to people, and I'm sure you've had the same experience, all they want to talk about is the price of gasoline, and I hardly blame them. Now, this is not something that we have created here in Connecticut, and we can't solve it by drilling for oil in Connecticut because there is none. So we have to make the best we can out of the situation, and we did a few things this year, Jim.
Yeah, we did. We understand that people are frustrated and they're angry, and it's our job to educate the consumer exactly what's going on. It's a global issue, as you know, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But the real fact is, what could we do that's real? There was two ideas. One I think was a great idea. One, I think the majority of people believed was a good idea. One was that we have this gross receipts tax that pays for our transportation system. And we decided at this time, because of all the burdens that the taxpayers have, is to freeze that particular tax, which would have been up another 5 cents. The only thing that I have to say that is we have to caution ourselves on that, because that is also one of our revenue streams that's paying for one of our top issues of the state of Connecticut, is our roadmap to Connecticut's economic future, is our new rail lines, the barges, the new Fix It First for our bridges and roads. But so let's put that aside. I think that was very symbolic, that we also feel people's pain. The one I think really made a lot of sense, though, had to do with allowing these cash discounts. All of us shop for bargains. I don't even care if it's 10 cents or 20 cents or a buck. My wife is huge with coupons, and we all want to look for the best bargain. What's nice about the cash discounts is, if one guy across the street isn't doing it, and the guy at your gas station is, and it's 20 cents a gallon difference or 15 cents gas difference, you're going to go to it. I believe that was really good for the consumer and a positive thing. But in reality, I think Connecticut, what we have to do is become as self-sufficient as we can when it comes to our energy policy. We can't wait for the federal. We can't wait to see what's going on in global economics of oil. We need to be green collar. We're doing it. We're working hard at it. We're giving incentives, making sure people understand that fuel cell. We have a Connecticut fuel cell. The only one that's on the space shuttle right now is a Connecticut company, a fuel cell. Another fuel cell company just had a patent that's being looked at by General Motors. I just saw yesterday that Honda is coming out with a fuel cell car. That's the future of the state of Connecticut. Biodiesel fuel. We have the University of Connecticut that are leaders in it, other university systems that are backing that up. That's what we need to do, and understand that the old ways, the history of big oil is over. It's time that Connecticut creates an opportunity here. A, get more riders on our trains, which is one of our missions anyways, but more so is, again, becoming as efficient and as effective as we can, and being able to control our own destiny when it comes to energy. And we are on that way, and I see this as an opportunity, not one of just an economic issue that's going to hurt our state.
And I think people need to understand every penny of the gasoline tax, every
Yes.
penny of the gross receipts
$13
tax,
million a penny.
all the money that comes to us from the federal government for transportation, and even certain motor vehicle fines, all go into the dedicated transportation fund and are spent solely on transportation. There's no intermingling with the general fund. It's no intermingling with the income taxes or the sales taxes. And this is what pays for, yes, construction, but also maintenance, right down to plowing the snow off the highways in the winter. So it's really a user fee that people who drive pay to
And
use
but-
the roads.
Bob, if you don't mind, I'd like to add something to that.
Sure.
And when you hear the news reports that we're the highest taxed in the nation, there's one thing they fail to mention all the time when you talk about fees. When you look at New York, New Jersey, especially up in your area, and also in Massachusetts and many other states, but those three in particular, they have something that we don't have. Those are called tolls. So if you add their taxes, their high taxes, plus the tolls, it really irritates me when I hear that all the time. Highest taxes, highest taxes. At least we have something that's a revenue stream paying for our transportation system. But again, we've done that without having tolls. If people want to start having a toll debate, if that's what our Republican colleagues want to be talking about, since they don't like the idea of investing in our transportation system, then let's have the debate. And I think the people will say that they believe that I'd rather have a transparency of saying this is what we have, and I'd rather not have tolls. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe tolls may be the issue of the future. I don't know. But on my book, I'd say no.
Well, when Chris was down in Danbury a few years ago before the Chamber of Commerce, the subject came up, and one of our members said, "No tolls over my dead body," and he got a standing ovation. So I think we're on the right track. And speaking of tracks, we did a lot on the environment, because the flip side of gasoline is getting people into mass transit and doing a lot more. This was a banner year again for the environment, Chris.
We did a lot on environment. It's a real concern for people, because not only about themselves and people's health, but also looking towards the future of our children and grandchildren. So people want to make sure we're taking care of the future in terms of healthy air and clean water. So there were three big items we worked on. One was a global warming bill, which we set guidelines for the state of Connecticut to lower our emission standards. We have certain emission standards. We said, let's put goals in place to lower those standards. Not just say, let's keep them. Let's look at where we were, and let's lower them and set guidelines to that. So let's lower the emissions, and really some strong guidelines. We're one of a few states that are doing this. I know California, I think New Jersey, and others are looking at these. Let's lower those standards. That was one thing, and I think that's a really important issue and has a lot of support out there. The other dealt with, we call it environmental justice, and the issue there is a lot of times, a lot of polluting buildings, et cetera, tend to be in urban areas. That's where the people are. So we said, hey, you know what, that doesn't seem quite fair. So we put together a plan, we worked with people in the communities, and we set up a structure where that if a company's going to come in and have some emissions, they work closely with the neighborhoods, they work closely with the cities and towns, and they put protections in to keep people from fouling their air and water. So that's another thing. And then another one which hit the news around Christmas time dealt with toxic toys. We found out that toys coming in, a lot of toys made overseas, they were using chemicals that were harmful to children. So we set, particularly lead, which is a real poisoner for children and hurts in their development. We set standards for those toys and made sure those toys are removed for sale and not resold and come back in a dollar store or something. We also made sure that asbestos, we found there was asbestos in toys. We made sure that they were out too, because kids chew toys, they do all kinds of things with toys, and we don't want that environment. So three important, clear measures we passed here with Democrat taking leadership on them.
Thinking globally, acting locally. Let's take another break.
Thank you for giving me blood.
Thank you for giving me blood.
Thank you for saving my life.
Give blood to the Red Cross and change a life, starting with your own.
And we're back. I'm Bob Godfrey. We're here talking to Speaker Jim Amann and Majority Leader Chris Donovan. One of the most important functions of government is public safety. And certainly in this last year, we've had news, tragic, right up to recently in the last few weeks, whether it's in the suburb of Cheshire or in the city of Hartford. It's a concern on a lot of people's mind. It's ironic, the statistics keep dropping. Crime is down, with the one exception, unfortunately, of the gang kind of activity in some of our big cities and now into our suburbs. But people don't necessarily feel safe. We've tried to work on a number of those issues this last year, Jim.
Well, you're right, Bob, and I think of course is the severity of the Pettit case was one that got national headlines. And I mean, the thought of any of our families being invaded like that, and certainly it was very, very tragic. But there are ways of dealing with issues that are rational, and there are the ways of dealing with issues that are partisan, and also, I think, one that appeases the public on their biggest fears. I think we chose a way of looking at this issue and how can we improve the system that we have in Connecticut. One thing was the whole issue of three strikes has come up again. The viewing audience must understand that we did pass a three strikes law in 1993. It was another tool to fight against drug, especially drug violence with our gangs, and we did a tremendous job. When we passed that bill, there were 19,000 there was about 8,000 prisoners in the state of Connecticut, and violent crime was rampant. So what we've done over the last few years, before even what we did this year, there are now 19,000 people in prison, and as you said, violent crime is down significantly. So obviously the things that we did in the early 90s have worked. But there's something that we wanted to do. We went to the frontline people. We went to parole, went to probation. We went to the criminal justice system. We talked to the judges. And we asked them, and also we went to the public defenders, and we had a meeting with them, and we asked them straight out, what do you need to ensure that we can not have an incident like the Pettit family thing happen again? And it came down to very simple things, about a $10 to $12 million price tag. It was about getting online people, more parole officers, more probation officers, more instances where we could deal with these issues of manpower. Corrections needed more people in the prisons, especially right now because a lot of them are overcrowded. But one thing we have to make people understand, and to get this across, is that on this whole issue of three strikes that keeps on coming out by the Republican side of the aisle, which is sensationalizing a horrible, horrific incident, neither of those individuals would have ever been convicted anywhere in the United States under the three strikes. That's what people have to understand. These individuals, this was their first extremely violent crime. When you hear the minority leader talk about anybody out there will believe that someone that's raped someone 2 times, murdered somebody 2 times, and did arson on somebody 2 times should go to prison for life. I disagree with him. I think someone who murders somebody 1 time, or especially 2 times, of course should go to jail. And the facts are, there's nobody out there walking our streets that murdered 2 people. There's nobody on our streets that raped more than 2 people at 2 different times that are walking our streets. So when you sensationalize those crimes like that, again, it's for the people's biggest fears. We've done a great job. The bill that we passed this year is going to put people behind bars a lot longer. We have a new law there talking about when you break into someone's home and their home invasions, that it is going to be classified as a violent crime, and they will do the time. So people doing longer sentences, more people in jail, and violent crime is down. We've done an extremely good thing in the state of Connecticut over the last 2 decades. People must understand that somebody's going to jail, Bob, when you see those statistics. So people need to know what the facts are.
And certainly in the Pettit case, the 2 animals who committed this heinous crime, they're facing the death penalty.
Of course they are.
Right.
Of course they are.
And those of us who support it for those think it's an appropriate use. Chris Donovan, you're going to be Speaker next year. What are you predicting for the future, and criminal justice or any other topic for that matter? Where do you think we're going to be going?
Well, I think it's going to be an exciting time. One, on the downside, the economy is a little bit of a lull. We need to respond to that in an appropriate manner so that people get the services they need, and we do it in an efficient way. That's important. It's my hope, and I'm sure all of us hope, that we have a Democrat in the White House, Barack Obama, and we will have then friends in Washington who care about the same issues as we do. As Bob, as you stated earlier, we've been buffering the people of Connecticut for 8 years of the Bush administration, which has destroyed a lot of what's good in our country. We'll have a friend now. We'll have a friend in the White House, a friend in Congress, and we can then get those funds that we need so much for education. We'll get those protections in the environment. We'll get that help in energy at the gas pump that we need. So working hand in hand with the federal government, with our colleagues here in the state, I look forward to good times ahead. And we have a great caucus, Democrats throughout the state. We hope to build on them. We have 107. We'd like to have a few more, hopefully a few more in the Senate. And we're willing to work with the governor as well. Healthcare, again, is a big issue. We'll be back with that. And we'll be looking for tax reform, which is help out the middle income people and make sure that they get an even break.
I think the agenda can be quite a long one. You mentioned tax reform. Progressive income tax has been talked about for some time. We need to do property tax relief on the local level. People are getting hit very, very hard, and they're getting squeezed by the high costs of energy, not just oil, not just gasoline, that we're going to have to wrestle with in the not too distant future. We've got the issues in transportation where, sadly, where we have to look at a very long lead time on mass transit, for example. We've seen people already voting with their feet, moving out of their cars and into trains and into buses, but you can't buy them. You can't put new ones on the line, even if you have the capacity, in less than 3 years. So it's a real challenge to us all to be able to kind of look forward and try and make the changes that we can make relatively early. Closing words. This is kind of your swan song as you retire to Milford.
Yeah, listen, Bob, we have, again, 4 years, I think, the majority party have done some significant things, again, in healthcare and Husky, given the first reimbursements to doctors since 1989, certainly the transportation system and many other things that we've done. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the caucus, and certainly working with you, Bob, as a deputy speaker. You did a tremendous job. And also my good friend, the majority leader, who I know the caucus is in great hands. So once I pass that gavel over to Chris. So yeah, again, it's been an honor, and my time is growing short, but I'm excited about the future of the Democratic Party.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Chris, for being with us. And that's our show for this month. If you have any questions or issues or want to contact us, you can reach us toll-free at the Capitol at 1-800-842-8267. You can email us at capitalviewpoint@cga.ct.gov. I'm State Representative Bob Godfrey. Thanks for watching.